Alright, FairEconomics channel video. Hey! Yeah, I'm always so excited. Yeah, bring you all this enthusiasm. But anyway, Yamara Mystic keeps making videos, and now he's back on this, I don't know, making some sort of loose comparisons and saying stuff about this idea of, I don't know, he calls them these MMT guys or whatever, this idea of, instead of, well, somehow that you can borrow your way out of these problems. And that there's no real problem with that. You can, print up a bunch of bonds and it's no problem. As long as there's people to buy the bonds, there's no problem. But there's a huge problem with any of these systems if you don't look at them for what's going to happen when they're stressed. The famous stress test word. What happens when that system is stressed? And how vulnerable is it to complete collapse? So, I mean, obviously, they got away with the 1920s all the way till 1929. But, I mean, it was a mess in 1925. It was a mess in 1920 even, in terms of where it was heading and how things were being built, the House of Cards. So, yeah, the House of Cards works until the House of Cards starts falling. And then none of it works. Every little piece of it turns into crap. And so that's the point. And the point is we have extended ownership title to trillions of dollars worth of things that don't exist. Number one, they only can exist in the long future, and we've done it in a circumstance where the long future has to go on a huge diet, so there's not going to be any room for these payoffs, for these returns on the future, because the oil boom is over and the population crisis is upon us, and it's over. Okay, it's going to be lean years, and in lean years you can't pay rent on everything you own, and that's what we're down to. We all have written, essentially, the United States, the citizens have written a rental contract, and they have no way of acquiring the income to pay the contract. And so, yes, the United States won't default on its bonds. That won't be the way it collapses. It will print money. And it's already doing it. Every year a little bit more. And a lot more than in past decades. In the last 5 years, the amount of cash in circulation has not doubled, but, it's getting there. It's a 30% increase or whatever over the previous 100 years. So, and these numbers are becoming meaningless to people. They talk about trillions of dollars like it's nothing. Well, it's goddamn something. When you add $1 trillion more of cash into the economy, you are going to, create inflation. And again, I'll argue that the collapse is going to be in the form of you've got whatever, $80 trillion, $50 trillion worth of IOUs out there. And there's only $15 trillion worth of hard assets, real value. The rest of the value that those IOUs are written on is stuff like my work today, or my work a year from now, or the value of a city street in 2020, or some other kind of nonsense. They're all written on things that don't exist. So there's only these 15 trillion in hard assets, and there's 50 trillion of statements saying I own that amount. And so that's the problem. And so when all these people that are holding these IOUs start trying to figure out, well, what am I going to own? I can't own Europe, the euro. That's crap. So maybe that one's going to crash first, and people start running out of that stuff. But they're not going to feel great running to something that's denominated in dollars, because they know the United States government is bankrupt, that the only way they're going to be able to pay their bills to keep their nursing homes running and their healthcare industrial complex running and their military industrial complex running is they're going to have to start just paying people in cash. It's that simple. They won't be able to issue bonds. So in some sense, a smart rich man is going to be in the catbird seat, because if he picks right, if he picks the last survivor right, he's going to win big. But it's going to be dicey. figuring out which currency is going to be the least destructible, and it's probably not going to be the USA or Europe. It will probably be something in Asia or in the third world where your money will be more secure, where it will actually retain its value as a currency. But even more direct, I mean, if I was, whoever, Rockenberg, I'd be looking for commodities to own, get a commodity at a good price. And so commodity prices will eventually shoot up. The hard assets, if you own food production, energy production, how you doing? That's the place that, the future is going to still need food and energy. Those are going to be semi-solid investments in the future, because the rest of this stuff is going to start turning to shit. It's that simple. So all this idea that, yes, you can pretend, you can put these fake cards on the house of cards for a while and get away with it, but there's nothing substantive about it. This isn't a fix for the system because you decide to, the government just going to spend some money and artificially respirate an economy. So, but Nick goes both ways. It's just so ironic. I mean, one minute he talks in glowing terms about fiscal responsibility, and the next minute he's saying, I can't find anything wrong with this idea of just, borrowing more money. It's just, what the hell are you talking about? In some senses, the borrowing works. Also, in the short term, well, even in the long term, it can work if you understand what it is, which is a flat tax of sorts, because it will just deflate value throughout the economy. So, in that sense, it has some fiscal rationality, but it's all marginal. Like I said, the key thing is it sets you up for a run. And this is the run, set it up there again, just what the hell. There's no other conversation. No one's arguing with it. The run on the bank this time will be the rich, the holders of the IOUs, trying to turn their U.S. bonds or their other stock paper or some other piece of crap into a hard asset. And it'll be a different kind of run, but it'll be the same kind of disaster. But it has to happen. I mean, the debt's unsustainable, can't be paid. There's just nothing you can draw on a piece of paper where you're going to explain how we're going to be able to create and generate the amount of surplus necessary to maintain these rental contracts. It's just too much rent. I just don't think people are going to go for it. I guess is the point. I mean, the average citizen's not going to be a day laborer and just take it. He'll get drunk or something and become a menace to society before he'll sit there and accept those terms. So, anyway, I think that's probably enough of a video. So, it's doom, because they're not going to do this rationally. They're not going to admit what the problem is. The rich have gotten too rich. They own too much. We're all renters. And it's bullshit. We deserve a new start because the game has been broken. It's corrupted. It's been hursted to pieces. It's got all kinds of dirt and friction and old grease, old hard grease stuck in it. And the whole thing needs a good cleaning with some kerosene. And and we're either going to do that the hard way, or we can do it the deliberate, sensible, graceful way. But the obvious, we will choose chaos, because human beings just can't seem to do anything reasonably. Now, I guess that's part of it. I have to argue is my own failures. I mean, the stuff I argue for seems so obvious to me. I should be able to convey the simple logic to other people. And, it shouldn't, there's the video. It's explained it. It's too much debt. People can't understand how that can happen over time in the system. The people keep acquiring surplus IOUs stating they own something. Their empires get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then all the citizens are turned into serfs. They can't understand that syndrome, and they can't understand that when you owe your federal government $200,000, you are a friggin' serf. You know, you've been owned, you know, flat out. Come on. Not that hard to understand. And there's only one solution, and that is to unravel some of this and take some of the money back. That's simple. Some of the IOUs have to be thrown out. The chaos is going to burn them anyway. Okay? I mean, when the disaster strikes, half the rich are going to have to go without. So why don't we just do it right instead of doing it sloppy and wrong? Damn it. Anyway, now it's enough of a video. Thank you very much. Till next time. Blah, 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 blah. And such.